Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast. Welcome to the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasonry while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and most people from Kansas say we don't have an accent, but once you hear my dashing young guest that's on the episode with me, you're going to find out that, maybe he doesn't have an accent. Maybe Bird's got an accent. So with all of that, Antonio Bubalo, welcome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I'm very honored to be part of this podcast. I'm a follower myself and a regular attendee on the YouTube channel.
Oh, I appreciate that. So for those, we'll get into it a little bit later. That's not a Texas accent. Definitely not Kansas, definitely not New York, but we're going to get into that. So we're going to slide Masonry to the side, as you know, that we do on this channel. We like to know as much about the man as we do the Mason. So let's push Masonry to the side just a little bit. Tell us who Antonio is.
Well, my name is Antonio, as you've already heard. I was born in Czechoslovakia. Back then it was one country, now there are two. So it's Slovakia nowadays. My family originates from Croatia, so former Yugoslav Republic. They fled the war during the 90s. I was born in 92. I was born on the way, so in Slovakia, and then we migrated to the Netherlands, so Holland.
Okay.
That's where I grew up, went to elementary school, and I moved to Sweden when I was 14, 15, somewhere around that time, because the rest of my family moved to Sweden while we went to the Netherlands. I grew up here, went to high school, a little bit of college, became a father at a young age. So I have a daughter who's 10 now. My career-wise, I've mostly worked in sales. When I was younger, everything from telephone sales, door knocking, event sales, direct sales, business to business, and all of that. I was a team leader, sales boss, and stuff like that. A few factory jobs in between. And now, as of lately, I've been a youth leader in my local church and also working part-time in online marketing and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I like it. So, when people say, "Are you a traveler?" You're like, more than you know, my friend.
I won't say I was born a traveler, but I kind of was,
It was the precursor more than you realized, right? So
exactly.
Outstanding. So we talked off air. You recently did an event with your youth group, and you just walked 20 kilometers, and we don't want you sitting in one spot too long.
I'll try to survive.
That's right. That's right. So that's a great rundown. And but folks, you're in Sweden now, and so let's talk about your Masonic journey before we get into the topic of a conversation. Why'd you join? Where'd you start? Where you're at today?
As many of today's young people, I started off as a conspiracy theorist. I'll just drop it like that. I was fascinated by conspiracy theories, by truth seeking, by ancient mysteries and stuff like that. I've always been interested in history, the medieval ages. I'm a big medieval nerd, if I may say so. And I had a friend that I got to know through the internet back when I lived in Holland, when I was like 12, 13 years old, playing Call of Duty and stuff like that on the internet. And this friend, he's a Mason also, his name is Milet Kelmendi, and he lived in Sweden. So we kept in touch, and as I moved to Sweden, we talked to each other through Facebook on the phone and stuff like that.
Right.
And he knew what I was interested in, right? I've always been interested in psychology, self-development, spirituality, Christianity. And then I saw him posting pictures with suits on Facebook. I was like, brother, did you just win the lottery or what's going on here?
Right.
He was like, no, brother, I became a Mason. And you know what? You are more Mason than I am. He said, you should join as well. And I was like, I've heard about Masonry, a little bit from a negative point of view, to be honest.
Sure.
But I was interested. So I started researching. I spoke to him a couple of times for a couple of months about it. I researched, I bought a few books and whatnot. And then I felt that I wanted to join. So I asked him, can you get me in? He was like, yes, I can, but you'll have to drive a couple of hours to join my lodge over here, if that's okay for you. I said, no problem. I got voted through. I jumped in the car, and that's what happened. And that was about pushing 8 years now, I think. So I became a Mason a little bit up north. I live in the south of Sweden, southeast corner of Sweden, in
Okay.
a place called Simrishamn, a little coastal town, so to speak. Um, so I became a Mason in just above Uddevalla, Vänersborg, in Lodge Rätavinkeln, or the 90-degree, So I became a Mason there. They moved me over, transferred me over back down here to Scania, where I live, and I started to join the local lodge here in Kristianstad. It's where the provincial lodge is located as well, in the same building. It's a big, big building, beautiful
Okay.
building, really like amazing building. And since then, I've been there. I became an officer as soon as I became a Master Mason, which was 2 years later, 3 years later.
Mhm.
And I've been a senior warden here in my local so-called, we have something called Masonic fraternity or society, all right, here in Sweden. So it's not a lodge, but we do open and close
Okay.
ritually, and we have education instead of a reception or initiation.
Right. Right.
So I've been a senior warden there, and I'm currently a junior warden in the Scottish Lodge, as it's called.
Okay.
So degrees 4, 5, and 6 in the Swedish Rite. And I've been everything in between. I've been something called introductory brother, something like something between the Tyler and I'm not sure what's it called. It's the one with like the moon on his like
The
deacon,
junior
senior
steward.
deacon.
Oh,
I
the
think
senior deacon.
yeah,
Oh,
I think it's a mix of those, like, it's mostly outside of the lodge.
okay.
But yeah, you also go in and stuff. So I've been that as well. I've been a talman, which, as it's called in Sweden, it's like a speaker, the instructor for the evening.
Okay.
So every initiation has a small speech, 10 minutes maybe, about something. I've been that as well. So yeah, I've been through the seat, so to speak. Yeah.
I like it. Well, so you got in and you got busy. So let me ask you this: what's masonry look like in Sweden from? So in the States, we're the reality is we're on a bit of a decline. Where's it at in Sweden? Is it a decline? Is it steady? Is it upward? What's that? What's the pulse on masonry in Sweden?
It's steady. It has recovered since COVID.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that more later. Why
Yeah.
that's a bit weird, to be honest, because yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
I think it's going up actually. More and more younger members are joining, even though the membership is still kind of getting old.
Yeah.
So
But
it's okay.
the older members seem to embrace the youth more than maybe the youth initially think, or do you feel that you're being embraced by the older members?
For sure, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, they were very helpful to me.
Yeah.
But it can be a bit difficult, as a young man to come in there with a bunch of 6-year-old
Sure.
business entrepreneurs, and you're like, okay, what do we have in common besides me?
And then you find out a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I think that's if there's any snippet to be pulled from this episode, it's right here. A lot of our younger Masons say, or younger folks that are interested, they'll say, yeah, I mean, if your lodge average is 65 years old and I'm 25, what do I have to offer, or what are we going to have in common? Well, one, you have a lot to offer, and what do you have in common? You have no idea. There's
Exactly.
so much in common, and the older guys, they love youth coming in and they want to share that with you. And I think that it's good. And the other side for youth, there's, at least in the United States, there's been a bit of what we'd call an attack on masculinity, but
Mm,
only men can teach men to be men, right?
100%.
And I think that a 25-year-old man joining, you can learn a lot from those 50 and 60-year-old guys. I joined later in life, in my mid to late 30s. And let me just tell you, those older guys, the mentors, they calibrated me in a way that I never expected. So, and that to me is the real secret of masonry.
I 100% agree with you, brother. And well said. And one of my best friends and mentors and brothers at the moment is a brother called Dr. Robert Lilia, and he's 62 or 3 years old.
Isn't it amazing? And you would have never
Amazing,
met him if you
amazing.
didn't become a Mason.
Never. So that's I've learned so much from him. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing.
I feel like we're doing a Masonic infomercial right now. Man, this is great. Somebody ought to clip this. And man, I wish I would have put my suit on. It would have been better.
It's okay. It's okay.
Oh my
We
gosh.
complement each other. We complement each other.
I love it. I love it. So let's kind of jump in. So we've for our listeners, Antonio and we've been kind of collabing back and forth via email, and we thought that there's just there's kind of a lost art to Freemasonry, and we think we really wanted to kind of discuss how to kind of find that path and talk about how to maybe bridge some generational gaps. So we kind of teased you in. You guys didn't really know that was a segue. So, but we've got some notes, but stay with us because this could be a great Masonic ed piece for your lodge. So, we really want to, I guess, jump in and start from what do we think the adversities that are facing Freemasonry today, right? I mean, what's the problem?
There are several, right? Internal, external, right?
Yep.
If we start with the internal, aging members, lack of proper education, Masonic fast food track grades, devaluing the craft, devaluing what you actually are experiencing. That's what I can come up with internally. Externally, we have the Leo Taxel still living on as a ghost. I can't even,
It's fascinating.
It's really fascinating.
But Leo Taxel got you interested in Masonry. Let's look at it from that point.
I mean, yeah. It probably wasn't him though, but still.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I've been a little bit active on TikTok as well, speaking to other brethren there.
Look in our video descriptions, gentlemen, and we'll have Antonio's TikTok channel in there. You can follow him as well.
Thank you very much.
Same with his YouTube channel.
Please do. Thank you. And the attacks are relentless, to say the least. And it's always the same, right? And I do understand where they are coming from. That's the problem here, because I was there as well.
Sure.
When you look at it from the outside, right? When you see a bunch of, not always, but mostly well-established men who are gathering in secrecy, people are writing fake books about it, saying it's riding goats and satanic and know all of it. Of course, you're gonna be hesitant, especially if you're a religious zealot. If you're really a thumper, the
right.
big basher.
Yeah.
Of course, you will feel wait, something is wrong here. And then if you add to that there are real dark forces at work here in this world, and there are lists that are being released out in the public. I'm not even, going to name any names, but so there are things going on. So these things that they accuse us of are happening in some places and spaces, right? They're just
that aren't with recognized and legit Masonry. That's the key, the separation.
Exactly. And it doesn't even have to be with Masonry. There are other dark orders, and you know what I mean, which most people don't even know the names of, because they're so secret. So these things do exist, and we become the scapegoat of look, these are the guys,
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm going to steal a line before you get there. In our notes, we talked about that external pressure, but here's a little line you had in your email. But with all that pressure, it can be used to form diamonds.
Amen. Exactly.
I love when I saw that. So think about that, guys. When some folks are like, "Oh my gosh, you're about to get too deep," just stay with us, because with all of those pressures, we can actually embrace it and say, "Oh, well, let's talk about this. Come to our lodge." I think that if we just dismiss some of the theories, like, "Oh, you're crazy," instead of saying, Where'd you get that from? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Leo Taxel. What you're forgetting about is actually he did the press conference and said it was all bogus. Why aren't we even talking about that? Right? And I think that when we want to get on a conspiracy, and we all follow a conspiracy here or there, we've all got one, right?
For sure.
But sometimes you're blinded, by the conspiracy that the truth. Well, this is what I'd expect you to say.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is that we have we need to we can't entertain it, right? As Masonry hasn't. We have just said we are not going to be rolling around with the swine in the mud.
Right.
But somewhere you need to at least address it, or at least
Boom.
give a counter explanation to these things.
Right.
Because I've seen
Or
people.
we're complicit.
Exactly, exactly. Or you're like, okay, I guess they are not combating it, so it must be true.
Well, especially with today's young men being born on the internet, right? You know, I grew up with no
Exactly.
cell phones and all of that. It's really easy to kind of follow into these lanes and say, "Oh my gosh!" And really, they're just a click away from bad or good information if we present a product out there and address it. But these folks that, to your point from your notes, that were born on the internet, they're craving real brotherhood and they have no idea. And I think maybe I'm going to put these words in your mouth and tell me if I'm wrong. You were craving brotherhood maybe when you didn't even know you were.
100%. 100%. And that's why I believe that Masonry is for all men who have a desire to find out who they really are, to answer the four philosophical questions that we all ask, right? Because we have an inner wound, right? We wake up on the beach of life like a sailor that had just been in a major accident, right?
Yep.
We have no idea where we came from. We have no idea why we're there, and we have a hole in our chest, right, which is
Yep.
bleeding.
Yep.
And we do everything we can to just cover it up with satisfactions and work titles and,
All the
love.
things that we think matter that really don't, because at the end of the day, how does that make you better? It might make your bank account better, right?
For sure.
But how does it make your relationship with your God, with your family, with your friends? What does it teach you? Working with volunteers, as we know, we can all be employers and say, "Oh, you don't like that, you're out. You don't like that, you're out." You can't do that with volunteers. So it forces you to, like, you know what, from a leadership, it forces you to listen a little bit more. But
For sure.
as we learn in Masonry, the tolerance, at least one of the big takeaways for me, Masonry taught me a lot of tolerance and grace. And when you have power, that's the best time to give grace.
100%.
That's the best time to show grace.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
and kind of segues us over to kind of the true purpose of Freemasonry, right? And what do you think Masonry really offers?
For me personally, it offers a way to take a look at this wound on your chest, right? To take a look at this wound that will never heal, right? To this, because the only way to become an authentic man, right, is to take off the mask, right? Is to look at yourself in the mirror,
Yep.
to know yourself, to be frank with you.
Yep.
And this is what Masonry offers. Masonry offers a path. It's not a welcome, brother. This is the keys to the universe. Have a good one.
Right. Hey, you're done. You've signed up. You're a better man.
Yeah, exactly. 33 degree. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not how it works. Because to become an authentic person takes time, takes effort, right? It takes responsibility. It takes a willingness to change. It takes a lot of things. And Masonry is an oasis in a time that like is so fast. We need a place where we can relax, shut off our phones, focus, and look at ourselves together. Because I believe that if we look at ourselves, we get to know God, right? Because we were made in the image of God.
Yep.
And if the God is, we have an invisible God, right? You can't see him right now. He doesn't answer me when I speak to him directly, at least. You know what I mean? So you
Right.
need to look at the mirror image of God, which is yourself. And what better way than through a brotherhood that has existed for several hundred, even more years?
Right. Yep. I agree. And that's why we're so much more than just a networking club. And your words, right? This is a way of life. And that's where folks say, "Oh, there we go. It's cultish. It's a way of life." No, we're not a social club to go out and hang and open a lodge and tap glasses and smoke cigars. That's part of it, right? But
Yeah.
we're a way of life. If you put this is a mentor of mine said something years ago that still resonates. Masonry is the only thing that you can put one in and get twice in return.
Mm.
If you will really put a little bit of effort, you'll get that twofold back if you're really putting in effort. And I thought, a lot about that. And it's just basically, if you just come in and go to lodge and sit there and don't say anything, you're getting nothing out of it. But if you sit there and embrace the culture, talk to the different brothers, go sit next to a 65-year-old guy if you're 25. If you're 55 years old, go sit next to a 21-year-old Mason. You might be shocked what you learn from each other.
100%,
because that's the education.
That's the education. And there are different types of education, right? But the best education is the personal education, the mentorship. That's how we progress. That's how we grow as individuals, because you can't just read a text, right? That's why people who find rituals online and think that they understand Masonry, they don't understand nothing.
No, because they don't get the way it's delivered. I can read something, right? And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But when it's delivered in a moment, in a place and time, nothing. I mean, we've all read our ciphers, like, okay, but it's nothing like being there.
Nope.
And
it's the experience. It's the experience.
It is.
And Masonry is an experience, and that's why we need to evolve the experience, focus on the experience, more on the details, right? Not just hand it off like it's something not worthless, but something with less worth than what it actually is. Because we have something beautiful in our hands, like something amazing. And me and you can attest to that, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
It's so when we have younger candidates, what should we be seeking in these young folks when they're petitioning? We're asking questions and what when we're looking, forget not necessarily just the newer member, when they are, as much as we're investigating them, they should be investigating us. When we're asking them questions, they should also ask questions to see if we're right for them, right? I mean, if this is a two-way interview.
100%, exactly.
And so what do you think that we should be looking for in new members?
We should be looking at people who are interested, as you just said, in us as well as in themselves. Obviously, no criminal record and all of these prerequisites.
Right.
But we should be looking for people who are looking for a purpose in life. Yep. Not no resumes, titles. He's a doctor, so he must be a good Mason. Has nothing to do with it. Nope. I know people who don't even have a job, who are more Masons than people who have been in FN ambassadors.
Absolutely.
I'm not even joking when I say that.
Right. No, hey, we everybody listening, they pick those people in the lodges are like, hey, this guy's way better than this guy. And, because it's not about money or titles. It's about the interior, not the exterior, as we all know.
Exactly. So it's the human qualities we're looking for, right? So we're looking for a philosophically minded person, at least basically, that wants to know more about himself and the universe and moral law and natural law and stuff like that. We need somebody to be at least a little bit social, right? I mean,
sure,
you can be a total introvert who can't go outside. It's going to be difficult to be around other people then, and he probably won't be an officer then and stuff like that.
Right.
And we need honest, good men, just father figures, policemen, just hardworking men. That's what I believe. Just hardworking men with a good moral and who are interested in to find out more about life. Because if I may just say,
but they have to also be willing to transform.
Exactly. And that's the problem here, because here in Sweden, at least, I know it's a bit different than America. You guys are still more spiritually inclined. We are the most secular country in the world here.
Right.
From what I know. If you think about it, people are more and more, at least around here, becoming less philosophical, less spiritual. It's more about the me, ego, get money, Instagram. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is. Instant gratification. Yep.
That's it. So, and that's totally opposite of Freemasonry.
It is. Right? And that's exactly why the youth, I think, to your point, needs us now.
Exactly. And many men, if you look on TikTok, YouTube, reject modernity, embrace masculinity. What are we looking at? People are revolting online.
Yep.
They're looking for ways to be a man because society is trying to poison their minds in every single way that you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
So
with all the gender roles and everything like that, and this is not a whole, Gay,
No,
straight, trans. This has nothing to do.
nothing to do with it.
Men need to be taught to be men by men. Period.
100%. Yes.
And just like women, as a father of two daughters, there are just certain things that a dad cannot teach daughters.
Mm.
That's just a reality. I mean, sure, I can talk to them about anything, but it's the same as reading a book. Well, the book says that you should do this. No, here, come over here, daughter. This is why you do it and why, right? That's what men do for men. So anybody that's sitting there, oh, it's toxic masculinity. No, get rid of the buzzword. Men need to teach men to be men.
Exactly.
Period.
And many men today don't have this, right? We don't
Right.
have it.
Yep.
And if you ask somebody, like, for example, in Swedish Masonry, what am I looking for? It's truth and light, right?
Yep.
As the emperor, or at least the governor, said to Jesus, what is truth? This is the question that's been asked now since post-modernism times in every college. You can't even discuss on the college. Just look at Jordan Peterson. There
Yep.
is no truth. How
Yep.
can a young man search for truth if we don't even know what truth is anymore? Your
Yep.
truth is your truth, and my truth, there is no your, my. There's only one truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, truth to me is black and white, but
It is.
yeah.
It can be both ways. Like,
Right. Yeah. There's
So-
perspective, but not truth.
100%.
Right. And I think people confuse the two.
Yes.
Right. So, so once we get our members in, at least in the United States, there's a big push for quality Masonic education. And I think that once we get folks in, members, I don't care what age you are, whether you're 25, you're 33, you're 55. When you go to lodge, you just don't want to open, close, have your agenda, read some bills, and bounce out. No, you want a quality Masonic education. And I think that people mistake, we'll see if you agree, I think people mistake Masonic ed with, well, it's got to be something about a Mason. And that, no, Masonic ed, that's the exact time where men are going to teach men how to be men. So Masons will teach Masons how to be men. Masonic education doesn't have to be rooted in a story about Hiram Abiff or King Solomon. It can be about, hey, let's make this let's have an anecdotal story, and maybe you tie it into Masonry, but it's Masonic ed if Masons are teaching Masons. It's just Masonic ed automatically, right?
100%. 100%. And the problem that I've seen, picking back on that, is that many of these speakers, I'm actually going to be holding an instruction at my local Masonic fraternity next weekend.
Okay.
And it's called Initiation, the Path Towards Your Inner Self. It's that most of the times we are focusing on these things that you just mentioned. Either it's history, 1874, there was a Mason named, which is very interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I like that. I like that.
But you need both.
Exactly. How is that going to make this Mason, this newly initiated person who just came back to lodge and who's a little bit lost about these new maybe working tools or stuff that he's looking at?
Yeah.
How is he gaining something from this? Like, honestly.
Right.
Or a talk about the war in Ukraine. I've heard that. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, he did move it into Freemasonry a little bit, but like, why are we talking about that? I have big respect for these people. My family come from a war-torn country, but
Yes.
that's not, we're not here to talk about Ukraine. Right?
Well, that could actually take you into a direction that creates discourse too.
Exactly. And we're not supposed to do that, right? So,
Not in the lodge room.
Exactly. So I believe we need to create some sort of a system. I know it's in America, it's like Grand Lodges do their thing, right? In New York, it's in one way. Here's another way.
Sure.
They have
all
one-day
sovereign
classes,
jurisdictions,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Here in Sweden, it's a bit different. We have every single degree has certain books that are, or like pamphlets that are associated with these degree, right?
Yeah.
Nobody forces you to read anything.
Yep.
You could go through the entire Swedish system without reading a book, right?
Right. But you may not advance.
You will advance.
Okay.
But you won't advance internally, if you know what I mean.
That's true.
So
That's true.
it's your own. It's up to you, right? Obviously, what
Right.
you put in is what you get out.
Well,
But
we
you
had
have-
a guest before from Sweden that just was going to get his 10th degree. Mats, I don't know if you saw that episode.
I saw
And
that episode.
him,
Yeah.
20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a long time.
But you know what? He was so excited about that because it's not the instant gratification. It's not that fast tracking of degrees that in some instances may in some cases devalue the journey.
It does. Like I'm not going to be telling you, brethren in America, what to do. That's not my point. I've never been there. I don't know why you have decided to do one day classes and like, I have no idea, right? So take my words with a grain of salt. Perhaps I should be telling you because I'm not involved personally. I have nothing to gain besides that I want you to advance and do better as my brethren, right? One day classes for me, if I've understood the concept completely, because I know it's different. Somewhere
Right.
you do actually go through it. Somewhere you sit on the line and look at it. Somewhere you get one to third, the first to the third degree. Somewhere you can get until the 32nd degree. It's different, right?
Right.
But anyhow, it's not possible, and it devalues the titles. Now, I understand that initiation is not something you get with the degree, right? It's something that starts. That's why it's called initiate. Something has started, right?
Right.
You have started the walk towards enlightenment. So it cannot be instantaneously. So
Right.
if somebody says to you, here, you get something which should take you at least a lifetime in one day, in one weekend, and you didn't even experience, you just looked at it, bro. It's like me going to the theater and looking at something, maybe saying something, and then now you're a Prince Royal Secret of Jerusalem Eastern. Like, what are we talking about? These are 18-year-old. I'm not saying they're not Masons or anything like that. I'm just saying for them, I would be so mad if this happened to me. I would be so sad, really.
Yeah. And I think that's to your point as we're kind of going back and forth. Your thought is, the mysteries must be earned. Right.
It's not my thought. It's the truth. It's just how it is.
Yep.
Like you cannot, how do you say? I cannot make you authentic, Brother Bird. It doesn't matter what I say to you. It doesn't matter what robe I give you or what jewel I put around your neck.
Yep.
It's the work that you need to do. You need to fail, go through the dark night of the soul. You need to transmute your inner, like the inner alchemy. You need to come closer to God. And that cannot be done in a weekend. I don't care what you say to me. This is how it is.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So what are you guys doing to kind of lift the Swedish Masonic system? What's going on over there?
Like we have been putting a lot of work in this new how do you call it? Vision. Yeah, the vision for 2035.
Okay.
A growing order, a stable order, an order with power in today's society.
Your roadmap for the next 10 years.
Exactly.
Right.
And we are obviously going to have to recruit, as every other organization in the world.
And you are using the term recruit.
Yeah.
So you're going to be a little more active and a little so with marketing and stuff like this. Is this what we're talking about?
I'm not totally sure exactly how that's.
But they know that hey, we got to do something different, or we've got problems.
Not problems, but we want to grow, right? We want to grow, so we need more people.
Light.
Yeah, exactly. We want to grow, be more part of society, right? Because we have around 15,000 Masons here in Sweden, and we have about 10 million inhabitants.
Okay.
So that's not that many, right?
Yeah.
There are other orders here, like the Oddfellow Order. They have like 50,000 members.
Yeah.
So, but it's not about the quantity.
And you don't have Shriners in Sweden?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think you do either, so
no.
Yeah.
So it's like, from what I've heard, we have the Royal Order of Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And besides that, I don't know, actually.
Okay.
But it's about focusing on the future, on the youth, right? On the young members, progressing the ritual work, making it more steadfast, more quality-wise better.
Mm-hmm.
And to not have any like drop-offs as we had during the Corona pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Because there's an interesting thing there, because most people said, yeah, but people are like, they found other things to do, right? Like they didn't go to lodge for maybe a year or two. They had to pay dues. They were playing golf or doing other outside activities, and they were like, nah, I'll do other things. But see, there's the problem, Brother Bird, because I also went through a tough period during this time, like both the financial, emotional,
Right.
spiritual, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
A very tough, difficult period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was only working part-time. I barely had money for anything.
Right.
So if that's the logic, I should have jumped off immediately. First of all,
Right.
I didn't. I stayed. And why is that? If I may ask you, it was because I know that Masonry, the great work, self-transformation, cannot be given up on. Because to
Right.
give up on Freemasonry is to give up on myself.
Yeah,
Understand?
and that would be that, you could argue that when times get kind of dark, that's when you should lean on Masonry the most. In your darkest times, if you're really seeking light in your darkest times, you should be leaning on Masonry or leveraging your learning. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's let me just tell you, on this
Yeah, for
channel,
sure.
even I have fallen into saying, COVID was a real problem because people found something else to do. And now, as you were saying that, and I'm hearing you, I'm like, you know what? That's the time that we should have leaned on Masonry the most. That we probably, in retrospect,
Mm,
in our jurisdiction, we shut down. There was nothing going on. And that's when we should have probably tightened up.
I agree. I agree. And Masonry was the thing that kept me going through this
Right.
time, even though it was mostly done at home, reading stuff and the few meetings that we did have, right?
That hurt our fraternity as a whole worldwide too.
It did. It
It,
hurt
it,
humanity in the world,
it
like, you
did.
know what I mean?
Well, that's also true.
So,
That's
but
also
but
true.
so it's obvious, but the key question is here: why are we Masons? What do we get out of Masonry? Right? This is the most important question. And I know there are many different types of Masons.
Right.
Not everybody is the esoteric type like me, right? Some people love the fraternity
But the
aspect of it.
core of it's the same. What we're all
It
looking
is
for is betterment, right? Is to
exactly.
to try to be the best version of ourselves. Because when you get light, it's like, oh, I can see improvement. I can see I'm actually not derelict in this part. I see that people love me. I see that I can love people.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So we need to focus on this core
Yeah.
because I've seen an increase because we have a moment. How do you call it? A problem where we need members, but we
Right.
can't be out there recruiting people because we're not like a golf club, right?
You got to find the balance between quality and quantity.
Exactly.
Sometime
Because
sometime in the middle, you need both. You need the quantity to pay the bills, but you need the quality to carry it on to the future. There's such a
exactly.
balancing act there.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And you're selling something that you can't even be totally open about, right? You can't
Right.
like
I
just say
want
it
you to
how
buy
as it
this
is.
car. I'm not going to tell you what motor's in it or how much luggage it'll take, but you're going to love it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the problem that we face. So I think we need to become better at saying it without saying it.
Right. Being a little
Mhm.
more, we can be a little more intentional. We can be descriptively vague and tell. There's not a lot of secrets, right? But if we say, "Hey, what," I think when somebody is seeking, what we don't do enough of is qualifying in sales. We qualify the customer, right? We don't ask them what they're looking for, right?
Mm.
And then when you say, "Hey, Antonio, what are you looking for in masonry?" I'm just a little off path. I'm looking for some fellowship. I just feel like that there's something missing in my life. Maybe those things. Well, let me tell you what. Let's start on point one. This is what masonry can offer, right? Now,
Yes.
but you're going to have to put some work in. Point two. And I think that when we qualify the customer, our product, we can present to them like this product was made for them exactly. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be that elevator speech. We need to make our pitch, for lack of a better term, when we're presenting masonry, we need to ask the question what they're seeking first so we can tailor this right back to them and say, this is why this is important. If you just go through this boom, 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 that may not resonate if it looks like that. I mean, because masonry, to your point, it's for every man. But
Mm.
sometimes we don't know how to present it to each man because everybody, what folks are looking for at that time in their life may be different what they're looking for at 25 and 45.
Exactly. And so this is the core of our conversation and
Yep.
and that we're having is that either we are so good at explaining what every human is looking for, right?
Right.
Or we adjust ourselves towards every single individual. I think it's easier if we just target the right audience, first of
Fair.
all,
Yep.
and also are a bit more explanatory about what Masonry really is, because you
Yeah.
can explain to somebody that it's
Yes,
about
you can.
personal development, that it's about
Sure.
philosophy, that it's about morality, that it's about esoterics, like, and if this person is not a total, you know what, they can actually Google, they can find a medieval book, they can read something, they can, oh, wait a second, there are other traditions that do, they
Right.
can they can find the ship, you know what I mean, and jump
Yep.
on it. But if you
Yep.
don't do that, if you just say, "Welcome to the oldest brotherhood. We have nice buildings and we offer brotherhood," like
Well,
it's a hard
that's the
sell.
solution, right? And that's that call for renewal,
Yeah,
right? Educating
exactly.
both the old and the new, kind of slow down that process and, bring back, to your point, serious philosophical and moral study.
Yes, because that's the core of Freemasonry.
It is.
And if you are educated about the your moral obligations, let's say,
Hmm.
towards your fellows,
Hmm.
then it's not that difficult to do a pancake breakfast. Then it's not
Yep.
that hard to get 10 guys to do something. For example, in my youth group, we just started a charity organization called Friends of the Light, Vänner av
Okay.
ljuset in Sweden. It was their idea. They are very like, they have burning hearts of desire to help people. You know, you don't have to force people.
That is this
Oh man,
generation. These last two generations, they are really about service.
yes, yes, and I believe we could stimulate that by stimulating the mind. If we stimulate the mind, the knowledge, with some good education, with maybe some national libraries with like degree works that you can get as soon as you're initiated. Take this home, read it, make sure nobody else does it. Just, you know what I mean? Read it, come back maybe with a paper, discuss, have evenings where you discuss different papers from different initiates, let them talk to each other. You know what I mean? There are
Well,
many
that's
different ways.
stealth marketing. When you go into marketing 101, but what that is really stealth marketing, that you're promoting the product without really knowing you're promoting the product. It's the equivalent of when a new phone comes out, a new iPhone, and you go to a college campus and you give it to a few influencers. That's kind of a stealth way of doing it. Like, oh, I'm
Yes.
doing this, or I'm talking about masonry. So kind of in that marketing, how should we, if you had a magic wand today and you were marketing Freemasonry, what would you, not what Sweden, what would you do as a TikToker, as a YouTuber, as just a fresh younger face in Masonry? What would you do?
I would support platforms like this, first of all, podcasts. It's a great way. And
It's
that's
the
how
new
I started my
generational
research.
communication.
100%, 100%. I would create our own, obviously, YouTube channels, TikTok channels, reach out to people, invite people for discussions, maybe online, do educational videos, long educational videos, actual study, obviously not from the inside ritual stuff, but like, so you want to become a Mason. Okay. You send in an application, you have to go through maybe a couple of hours of education to get you even more interest. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
create something digital, create a digital product that can be sold. I'm not talking about the physical experience yet. Let's
Right.
start with the digital experience,
Yep.
because
At least
most
that
people
we're
are
controlling our own narrative that way too.
exactly. So you are like, okay, these guys are saying we are evil worshippers over here, but come and listen to us here. Because if you're
Yeah.
not here, then it's only this here.
If you're listening to this and you believe this, at least we'll put our own words in video. So you've got sound bites that we'll say this in the open. They're saying this to the open world. We'll say this to the open world. Now, who do you believe?
Exactly. And I really believe that, as many people have experienced, that the fastest way to expand in today's age is through the internet,
Yep.
right? It's
And hit
not,
it right in the face. Just like, here's the counter to that. That's crap.
yeah, you can go viral. You can
Yep.
use some slick, perhaps, ways of like posting videos, even
Sure.
clickbaiting some things,
Sure. Yeah.
and and reach the youth, because I've spoken to several myself on TikTok. I'm a nobody on TikTok. I have like 200 followers or something.
And
But anyways,
until this episode airs.
Yes. From your mouth to God's ears.
Right.
But like I have changed a few people, right? Who were very critical. I've spoken to them in private, PM'd them, talked to them, and they are now like asking questions. They seem to be going towards Masonry. If I can do that, what can't the Grand Lodge of New York do then?
Exactly right. Right. And you know, it's just attitude and effort, really. Nothing's complicated in Masonry. If we have the right attitude and put in a little bit of effort, if all of us put in just a little bit of effort, we can turn this ship quickly. Get all the first thing we have to do is get all the oars on the same side of the boat. Then we'll get somebody to tell us how to row. It's not that complicated, folks.
I agree, brother.
It's not that complicated. So before we close out, is there anything that on rediscovering our sacred path to Freemasonry that we want to hit before we close out the episode?
I think we hit most of it on the head, actually. I would just like to, for you watching, if you're interested in finding out more about yourself, about Freemasonry, contact the local lodge. Do it. You won't regret it. And you'll see for yourself. Do not listen to online theories, or as Nike would say, just do it.
Right. Or if you're going to listen to the conspiracy theorists, at least give us an opportunity for the counter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that would be it.
Antonio, thanks for coming on the Old Fashioned Masonic podcast, my friend. Cheers.
Thank you, brother. Cheers.